Hey Brooks, good to see you. So 25 scripts, 25 screenplays. So what's that's a lot of screenplays, a lot of work. So
That
what's the yeah
it's actually
that,
more.
that
It's 45. I've written over 45, and and beyond that, I've probably written 20, 30 treatments, and then I've developed other people's screenplays in my coaching program probably 35 times.
that's enormous. So what's the difference between your first screenplay and your latest? Let's say what changed the most?
Yeah, that's great. So the first one that I wrote, I made. So that one came out of me like a cannon. I went to NYU Film School, and that summer I made my first feature. I was 22 years old, and that was pretty much just a string of scenes. There was I played on the soccer team at NYU, and I was frustrated because we were painfully average. We weren't great, we weren't terrible. We were really good at drinking after the games. So I made a movie that was kind of like a hangout movie with my friends from college, and so it was really a series of scenes, kind of linked in and loose. But I didn't really understand concept. I didn't understand structure, so it was a mess. But it had some, sort of nice youthful energy to it. Uh, and then, actually, interestingly, one of my more recent screenplays is also about a soccer team, but this one is beautifully structured. It's thematically clean. It goes right down the middle in terms of structure, but it has the same authenticity. I was intending when I was 22 to write something that was just sort of F Hollywood. I don't care about structure. It's cool hangout film with my friend about my friends, and then at the end it was like just pure amazing structure, but also that deep grounded value, that deep grounded
Yeah,
sensibility.
but you were not thinking of being a professional writer at that time,
Well,
or did it
originally
grow?
writer director, because I went to NYU. I'd made 50 shorts before I even got to NYU,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah.
and so I was all in on being a writer director.
Yeah, yeah. It was not evident become be a paid writer, correct? I mean, I see that's the biggest frustration with any filmmaker and writer in the business or in the creative business. Let's say a painter, you can paint a lot and you can have like a million paintings done, but how to monetize it? I think that's a big step,
Well,
right?
that's what happened. So I made that movie. People saw it, who saw it were like, "Yeah, it was pretty good for what it was," but it wasn't great. It wasn't like getting me extra work. And then years later,
Right.
I tried to make another feature in my 20s, like a found footage project, and I didn't understand structure. I didn't understand concept. So it was a mess. Took a couple years off from the business, then came back, made another feature. So at this point, I was in my
Right.
mid 30s, like 33. And the same thing, it was like good, but not great. And I was like, well, there's a gap here. And I didn't know how to solve it. And then I learned Blake Snyder's Save the Cat system. And I was like, oh man, there's people that have actually figured this out. And if you listen to people who've already done it, it actually, so I took my same creativity that I had the whole time and I just did it in a systematized way. And then that changed everything. So I started pumping out 2, 3 scripts a year. And I also knew at that point it was so expensive to make features, but I could write screenplays and iterate faster. So 2, 3 per year, and I just learned, and then I got signed at UTA, and then I started getting assignments and sales in Hollywood and beyond.
So you never stopped. You never stopped. You just keep going.
Yeah,
Keep going.
that's right. I mean,
I mean, that's what it takes,
at
correct?
this point, since I have so many, and since I see the future as AI filmmaking in my own, like I'm the way I see my career in, I don't know, 2, 3 years is I'm just going to be directing. I have a backlog. I've two dozen scripts that are banging scripts that I'll just make them myself, and so I'm all in on AI
Yeah.
filmmaking.
Yeah, right. Now the thing is, in the podcast I'm doing is I try to bring the writers closer to the producers, and so you can ask any questions. I think we have to brainstorm a little bit. We have some questions from the following on LinkedIn, especially who ask some questions, so we can get to that later.
Great.
But people, they're really willing to do some stuff, and maybe we can bring some solutions, or maybe we can just bring some light on their path.
Great.
I'm also trying to use technology in order to fix the gap between writers and producers through Screenrep, my platform, where we basically have an intake system where screenwriters can just upload a script on an intake link, and then they can also see that the producer is just adding that script to his watch list or to his slate, which is always a problem because I get a lot of submissions all the time, and then people are following up. Hey, what do you think about a script? I don't know. I even know which script it is because it's like about five to 10 a day. It's a lot. Not every day, but it's like that size. So it's very hard to. And then I'm also developing our own stuff with a bunch of writers. So that's another thing. So I understand there's a lot of frustration for beginning writers and also professional writers to get the script on the right desk. So that's our thing, get the script on the right desk. So I think we can help people and also producers with technology. Now, what technology will never be capable of doing is create original art. That I don't believe in that, because where does art come from? I think it comes from the universe somewhere. It's not something you can measure in the brains, and they did those tests measuring the brains. Where is this art? Where is this idea coming from?
Yeah,
they basically can check, or they can see where love comes from anger comes from. It's all different places, but where the input comes from creativity, they cannot just measure. So that means it comes from somewhere else. So I don't believe AI would be capable of creating something really new, but it can help us, I think, finding or addressing big problems in scripts. So what do you think about using AI to, let's say, to do some coverage, AI coverage and all that?
Oh, I love it. So the way I see it is you're really breaking it down to like your point of view and the ideal viewer's point of view, and then whatever it takes to make that connection, right? So in a way, YouTube or even influencers, they kind of crack the code. And so I think content creation is the umbrella communication of what we're doing in the modern time, and cinema is a subset of that. Like, I don't see content creation as like a bad word like a lot of people do. I see it as just a more broader way. Like, whatever your point of view is, you've got an ideal viewer out there and they want to know your point of view. So AI is the best tool ever to help you find your people, clarify what your idea is. And then, because it takes iterations. So I can say, even if I'm not using AI at all, I need to say, I think I've got this idea. I need to then rethink it and maybe talk to people about it, blah, blah, blah. So AI speeds everything up because it's an amazing sounding board, especially when you know how to use it. And you have to, because if you use it the wrong way, I actually did an experiment a few months ago. It's pretty interesting. So I took 9 writers and we wanted to come up with concepts. So, so we had 3 writers that were beginners, 3 that were intermediate, 3 that were professionals. And in each of the 3 sets, one was going to do it without AI at all. One was going to do it AI on their own and kind of try to figure it out. And then one in each set was going to work with me and AI. I was going to show them how to use it the right way. And then once you had the 9 log lines up, we went back to the community and people rated them just on terms of not knowing where they came from. And what happened was most fascinating. The 3 people, beginner, intermediate, and pro, who tried to use AI on their own and didn't know how to use it, got the worst rated log lines. In the middle were the 3 people who did it old school, didn't use, and then the highest rated log lines, even the beginner, worked with me and AI. So in fact, the one that won all of our own was a beginner using me and AI. That was the highest rated thing. So it's a great tool, but you have to know how to use it. But it's the same thing with, like, anybody can write a novel, but most of them aren't good. Well, so you need to make some choices. You need to iterate, see how it lands, learn, see how it lands, learn, go back and forth, back and forth. So, and I love your approach because you're data driven. What does the data tell us about this iteration? And
also it's not simple. I mean, on the IT side, it's not simple prompting for us. It's a lot of layers. It's a lot of complex systems we use in order to get the best out of, I mean, to make the best analysis of the script, of the screenplay. And that's going well. We're in test phase right now, so we're going to roll that out on the producers end first, because the producers need to be capable to quickly take an assessment on the script and say like, okay, what is this? Is this feasible? Financially, is the concept, is that the kind of concepts we're looking for?
Yeah.
And all that, and is it star driven or not, or is it more like some more like a smaller movie, which, I mean, everything is fine. The producers just need to make sure you can check it very quickly with
I have a question for you.
application.
I have a question for you as a producer. How clear are you about what you're looking for? And have you ever gotten in a project that you didn't think you were looking for, but it came onto your radar? You're like, ooh, I didn't think about that, but I want to do it.
So sometimes there's some scripts that are really good, which are not, let's say, action or sci-fi or horror. That's usually what I'm looking for. But I had some great dramas which came along, and they were so well written. So what do you do as a producer? You engaged and you help to make the movie made. Maybe not as a lead producer, but you hook up with some other producers. So that happens sometimes, but that's just, I think a great script, like a gem, happens to me every 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So that means that that's a script you just read. It's a page turn. You never stop. It's like, okay, shoot it.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes. But I mean, it could take another 10 years. I don't know about now. But it's tough, and it's also very personal, because I think
Yeah.
scripts that resonate with me are very emotional as well. They can be really tough in storytelling, can be action. A lot of people can die. But I think the emotional level for each scene and everything, I think that's so important. And that, I think that's, I'm not a writer again, but I think that separates great scripts from just good scripts. It's not in the face. There's a lot of subtext,
Yeah.
which you capture. Yeah. And you see the main characters, and also the other characters is a clear evolution, and you see them thinking what you would feel when you read a book. But of course, it's a visual language, and still it works. So as a writer, in order to achieve that, I think that's the higher level. And I think I'm expecting that kind of level when I read scripts. And sometimes it's very hard to communicate to writers what I'm actually looking for. I mean, a concept can be really great, and every element can be there, but still, if the emotion is not really strong, why would the audience be engaged? Why would the audience say like, wow, I saw this movie and this is so great,
Yeah.
I mean, that feeling comes from the page. When it's not on the page, the director is not capable of
Yeah.
translating that
And I would say,
imagery.
as a coach, even before it gets on the page, it really needs to be clear in their mind. So that's why I have a 9-step
Yes.
process, because, like I said, the first 10, 12 years of my career, I was doing it the hard way. I was just kind of going, well, I like this, and trying to figure it out and just muscling my way through. But once I realized that there was a significant return on my energy and creativity investment if I really focused on telling the story in 1 sentence, and then telling it in 5 sentences, and then just bum, 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 the whole process. So once I realized that, it was amazing, and I would never write it a different way, just because I just found out, like, whether it's a producer or the audience, they need to know certain things. They need to have a clear sense of the concept, and they need to have a clear sense of beginning, middle, end, and just like the things, those character arcs. And when they're not there, they start to, they probably consciously don't know it, but they definitely feel just a distance or boredom or something. And so what I do with my system, because I've been through it so many times myself, is I can just make sure that the writer really is clear in their mind. And then once they're clear in their mind and they've made decisions, then it can come together and it stacks really nicely.
Yeah, I also see that, because that's one of the questions we have later, but maybe I can already talk about it a little bit. Like, can I just write for a producer in order to have a budget in mind? I think you can do it, but I would not do it, because if you know what the emotion should show in one scene, you can rewrite the scene in many, many ways, cheaper ways and the more expensive ways. I think the emotion of the scene and the purpose of the scene should be very clear from the beginning. You can make it you can make any movie at any budget, right? That's just how it is. Sure. But I think it's very important for the writer to say, okay, when I just cut this scene or omit the scene, is the movie still standing? I would just cut everything out that doesn't have any purpose, for sure. I mean, if you don't do that, you fall into mediocrity. So I think it's really good to analyze every scene and say, like, is this contributing to the journey of the characters?
I would say I really like what you're saying, and I'm in agreement, and I would articulate it by saying the highest priority of every scene is the emotion delivered. Is there emotional impact here? Sometimes, right. Rarely, you'll get somebody who's delivering emotional impact, but it's a total mess. That's pretty rare. Usually what you have is people who are, like you said, it kind of makes sense intellectually, but you don't effing feel it. And so if you want to sort of filter for one thing and one thing only, it's emotion. Because if you have the emotion, then everything can be worked. If you don't have the emotion, then you're spinning your wheels anyway. So I think your point of big budget, small budget, like, that's really not the central question. Get good at delivering real effing emotion through words with real clarity, and then everything else is secondary.
I think that's also, I agree totally. I think that's also the reason, or maybe I'm wrong in that, but I have a suspicion that in order to be capable to capture the emotion and also the experience in emotion in life, because it's a live experience you put on papers in many cases, I think you cannot be too young to get that. You need some mileage, right?
No, I totally disagree. It's about opening. I mean, the Beatles were 16, 17 years old, and they were creating art that lit up the world.
Yes, it's talent.
It's less common with writers because there's an intellectual part of it. But no, it's about access to your truth. You do have, YouTubers who are 18, 19 who have big audiences. And so, no, it's 100% emotional authenticity. Most people,
that resonates.
Most people takes practice to first of all, open up emotionally and then craft it in a way that's digestible for other people. And so most people takes a while in those 10,000 hours, but no, not at all. Like, Mozart supposedly was, 5 years old or something, right? Where he was.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the music, it's just crazy. Yeah. It's actually it's a miracle. It's not possible. I don't understand. I cannot. I mean, Mozart and many others at that time. Yeah. It's really. I mean, even John Williams is saying, "Hey, I'm not Mozart. I have to work very hard to get this melody, for Schindler's List, in the Indiana Jones and all that." Yeah. John Williams is saying that. So Mozart is like.
What's interesting in the work that I do, because I have a whole background in personal growth, which means, men's groups or just or anything from like meditation or yoga or, I was a certified massage therapist when I first got to LA, just because it was an amazing experience. I love any sort of inner exploration. And what I find out when I coach people, how do you open up and get to that authentic place? Why is it blocked off? And it's blocked off because we didn't feel safe. We were in our early life, we had some sort of system where it just, because our parents weren't comfortable fully expressing their own authenticity. And so then when the kid did it, the parents got uncomfortable and they kind of was like, no, don't do that, whatever. And then we all developed these defense mechanisms, maybe the class clown or the intellectual or the achiever or whatever. And those identities calcify and actually block us from being more emotionally open. So when I coach people, most of what I'm doing at the level that I coach at, it's actually the inner work and finding out what's bumping and what's stopping them from just being, open and having the genius flow out of them. So it's therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And then
basically it's connecting with the universe, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that if somebody has a spiritual orientation, then I would definitely, help them connect with the universe. But Yeah, it's a lot of people that come to me have, different beliefs about things and their sensitivities in different ways. I mean, but
Right.
some of the best people I've worked with, you can see there's a lightness to them. Like high level creatives, there's an openness, and there's an open channel to the universe. And some people think it's aliens or whatever. It doesn't matter to me as a writing coach. It's just you just have to have an openness to the ideas and realize in a way it's not even us. The ideas like come from in us or whatever. We're just part of the universe and it flows out. But there's an openness that if you don't have that, it makes it really hard to even sort out the ideas that are likely to be emotionally impactful. And you end up doing ideas that kind of seem like they're right. And that's some of the things that happens with AI. When people use AI the wrong way, it'll make a convincing argument based on the data that it could be this creative choice, but it feels kind of hollow. You have to really use AI to enhance and open up that authentic voice and not use it to kind of defer to it. You can never defer to AI. It's got to be your voice and your point of view. But AI is
Yeah.
amazing to help you challenge you on the clarity of your point of view. And that's why
Yeah.
I've been a huge component.
Yeah, that's funny because it's I used to make a lot of house music and EDM in the 90s.
Nice.
I was terrible, but then at the end I was really successful. I got some gold and platinum records and all. So everything
Wow.
was fine.
Amazing.
But anyway, it was number one on the charts. So not in the US, fortunately, but it was in Europe, was a big hit. And then I got a lot of club hits. But the thing is, at that time I was not capable to create really, really complex melodies and also finding the right chords. I was just a DJ at that time, so I was just pushing buttons, and it was a hit and miss, and then I had a hit, and then there's maybe some creativity in that, but for me it was like,
Yeah.
and then recently, maybe a couple of years ago, I started listening to Rick Rubin, the famous producer, because he's touching on that issue a lot. I mean, everyone in the creative industry should listen to Rick Rubin, I think. Whatever industry it is, if it's creative, it's really interesting. And he helped me basically through his podcast to get this melody first. Let's call it the concept. If you just compare it with a story, like the idea, the concept, and then how you're gonna make the movie or the script, that's the left hand, that's the chords, you can do it many ways, right? You can do it many ways. And basically what I was capable, because I'm not a really good player, what I was capable of doing is just play the melody, have the melody in my mind, then just, record in Logic Audio the melody. And then, but I already knew what the chords would feel like. So I put the chords done little by little, very slow, but I remembered in my mind. I don't know where it was coming from, but it came from somewhere. So I was never capable of doing that. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So if all film fails, I may go back to music anyway. I wouldn't have time enough in my life.
Have you played around with AI music, like AI generated music?
Actually, not, no, because for me, music is. It's not a shortcut. I could use AI to find chords, but that's just the fun thing about music, is find the right chords with the melody you have in your mind. Yeah. So it's on one end it's less complex than storytelling, because in storytelling you have to recreate a world, right? With music you just have one emotion. You just put on paper. Or in notes. But I think the connection, or try to the idea, the idea machine. Because what I'm doing with a lot of writers is like sorry, but what you're sending me in scripts, it's not really strong, because the concept is just not. Just send me like log lines, 10 a day, 10 a week. And then we'll look at some and maybe, hey, this stands out, so let's highlight it, and then maybe do some synopsis on that. I keep saying that, but that's really helpful, because when the concept is just weak, whatever, I think all the rest is going to be a waste of time, and it's going to be very frustrated for the writer to go around with the script and try to sell it. So that touches on something else I want to ask you. So of course, it's a big tragic for writers, in order to be, a writer that can sell his scripts and can really make a living with it, right? So when do you think a writer is ready for the industry? When is a writer ready? At what level is he ready to approach a studio or a production company or any player that's significant in the industry?
So those are two different questions. One is sort of what's the sort of sequencing or process. There's three phases that I see. There's just dabbling and experimenting and playing. That's kind of phase one. That's act one, right? And then there's the new world where you go, oh, wait a minute, like there's something here. It's kind of good. Like I feel me in this. And that's the new world. That's like act two. And then you're getting into craft and you're mastering the craft. You're like, oh, I can do this and that. And, and then sometimes that'll be, if you're a filmmaker doing several films or screenplays, you might be pumping out iterations of features. But you're really almost like you fall in love with the craft itself, and you're getting your voice. And so by the end of that second phase, or the end of act two, you've now have a consistent voice that comes from your soul, and you can do it over and over and over again. Now you're really in a durable and ready position to say, okay, I know what my voice is. Now let me work with other people so we can do a duet or a harmony, and that could be a producer or directly to the audience or whatever. That's act three, and that's when that monetization just comes from you're doing it so well, so consistently, and there's people who are willing to pay you for it, whether it's the producer or the end audience. So those are the three phases. And you can move through fairly quickly, but I think 10,000 hours, that whole theory is pretty spot on in terms of getting to the point of really being so good at your craft that when other people get involved and they have notes, you're not dumbing down your voice. You're not trying to say, no, it has to be my idea, or deferring too much, because I'm sure as a producer, you want a writer who's full-throated and your point of view, so that you guys are both at your best coming together. So that's the phase. Right. That's the phase, the sequencing of it. In terms of when to go out, I think you go out right away. Anybody who's watching this right now, start building relationships now. And because the way that I see the game is, it's a social game. Like I want to work with people who I like, and we have a shared sensibility, and I'm in it for the long term. So I'm not trying to sell you a script now. What I'm trying to do is build a long-term relationship. So let's say somebody's a new writer. They're let's say 23 years old, out of film school, or dramatic writing program or whatever. What I would encourage them to do is to start building relationships with people who are making the stuff that they want to make, and not say, hey, and it's even easier to do it before you have a script to sell them, because if you have a script to sell them, you're nervous, you put 100 hours in there, you're like, and like that's hard. But if you're literally just going, hey, producer, I see your Substack, I'm into the stuff that you're into, oh, I saw you post this thing, let's hear my ideas about whatever. You really start a human relationship with people, and then you think, at some point, because I'm hanging out or interacting or whatever, we might do business. Like that to me is the way. And back in the 70s, you did it by going to Hollywood and going to those parties and whatever. Now you do it online. So
that's true. But on the other hand, as a producer, I'm not even responding to most of the scripts that come to my desk. I apologize for that. So let's say if a writer would come to me like, hey, I'm a writer, I don't have anything, so can we have a coffee or that? I mean, I don't say no. I don't respond. It's impossible.
Well, it
takes too much time.
Hold on, because this is great, and this is gonna be super helpful for people, because you jump to a lot of assumptions that I didn't say at all, and that's important, right? So, and the problem that you talked about, and the problem with what they're saying is the ask has to match the relationship. The ask has to match the relationship. So if they are a stranger to you and they go, hey, I'm new to the business, can I take you for coffee? The answer is hell no. Like, you're busy. Of course not. That ask doesn't match that relationship. But what does is you post a LinkedIn, and when you post to LinkedIn, you are inviting strangers to share their point of view. And if the 23-year-old on LinkedIn responds to your post and gives you a banger of a comment and says, you know what? Blah, 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 blah. Really interesting. You're going to go, holy smokes, this person's an interesting human being. And then next week you post, and again, that some comes in and maybe it's whatever. Maybe this person writes horror, and let's say you were a horror producer and they write horror, and this person shares insights about a monster or this or that, and you go, God damn. So now they're building a relationship because you asked them. You solicited comments every time you post. So they're not trying to sell you their script. They're sharing their point of view. When you asked for their point of view, that's how you build a relationship. And if and only if they impress you, then maybe after they've done this a few times, they come in and go, by the way, hey, I've just written this new horror script. I'm wondering if you happen to know like an up-and-coming horror producer who's interested. Now you're going, that's interesting. I like this person. I like the way they've shown up. I like their point of view. Well, you tell me, what is your horror script about? Now you've solicited them to pitch, and they go, well, it's blah, 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 blah. And you go, holy smokes, that's interesting. Send it over. That's what I'm talking about. That's building a legit relationship, meeting you where you're at. It's not going, hey, take me to lunch, or I'm going to take you to lunch. I'm going to pick your brain, buy my script. All that's too much. It's like trying to get in bed with somebody when you meet them at a bar in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, we try to solve most of those problems. I mean, I think it's important for a platform to be merit based, and then also merit based, of course, on general quality, but also it needs to be a match for the genre you're looking for. So that's what we're trying to solve, and I think that works already pretty well. So that's the first filtering, and I think this sympathetic guy who gets it, he will come through also with his script or whatever he has. It will come through, I think. So that's something we try to solve.
When you're talking about also, that pure commerce level, that is the best way to do it, because you might say, look, I think I'd like to make a movie in this sort of genre, this sort of subgenre, these sort of elements, this sort of maybe budget range or whatever, and somebody has that. Now you've reduced the segment. So now you're not looking at a million different things. That's just a smaller segment. And if you're just looking for business opportunities, that's fine. That can work. But what I'm saying is the socializing, anybody can do it any time. And, but you just have to meet people where they're at. You can't the ask has to match the relationship.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. So you're saying about the unique superpowers, how to help them find it. The writers, they can have unique superpowers. So
yeah,
how does that? I mean, I like to hear that as a producer, because when I would have a writer that really knows his thing, I would be really interested to partner on several projects.
Yeah. So here's how I've done that. Methodically, systematically. I have a 9-step process. Step 1 is just finding out what your superpower is. And you could actually do it as a producer if you want to. It's really simple. You list your 10 favorite films, your 10 favorite TV shows. And already in that process, you've now surfaced your creative DNA and sensibility, because we now have the opportunity to have seen 100,000 different, like either movies or TV show episodes or more, right? And out of all those, somebody, your age and my age, we've probably seen 10,000. And of the 10,000 we've seen, or 10,000 hours of movie content or whatever, if we're reducing that down to 10 shows and 10 films, like that is so specific to your sensibility. So that's step 1. And when I coach people, I walk through what their 10s are, and I look at the connective tissue. Are you drawn to this sort of recurring conflict, these sort of settings, these sort of, there's patterns that I can see and pick up. And then from there, I know who you are. In your case, I could do it as you as a producer. And then step 2 is concept, right? So for writers, once they know their sensibility, then we kind of go, well, why? What went on in your childhood that made you want to escape to sci-fi, or that made you crack jokes all the time and be into comedy, or whatever it is, whatever way you survived childhood is expressed in that list of favorite films and shows. And so once you surface that connective tissue, as a writer, that's the one that you need to write. And for you as a producer, that's the material you need to produce, because it's hard to produce. You run into so many boundaries if you don't have a personal connection, and you're just doing it for the money. It's like, it's too hard. So when you know your sensibility, and that's a system that I've seen work over and over and over again, where people then know, here's who I am. Here's where as my point of view is about this, and here's who I stand for.
Right.
And once you know that, everything from that flows with much more clarity and simplicity.
Yeah, most producers, they don't really care. I think that's the reality. They just want to make movies, and they're looking for a script that works, and they read it once, and then they try to attach talent and do the pay or play offer, get the actor, get it rolling. Basically, it's the director that vets the project. If the director is okay with the script, they don't care anymore. So that's not my approach. I try to find the right director that I resonate with, I really love, I really like as a person. And then we try to get it to that vision where we both agree on. And that's a long trajectory, but I think it's most interesting. I think because then you just make something more authentic.
That's
and
right.
If the writer then also gets it, then I think you can make really good movies. Because I think the problem with filmmaking, you need continuity as a producer as well. So it's not very evident to make 2-3 features a year unless you're commissioned by a network or something like that. But if not, you are eager to generate cash flow, and I see many producers just taking whatever they can find and do that. And I think that doesn't make any sense. Then it's maybe better to be in another business, and whatever. I'm not going to say any other businesses. I don't want to have any angry people texting me. But I think
there are some businesses that have better margins, right? Better margins, more urgency. If the focus is, look, I'm just focused on paying my bills. Most businesses are better than the entertainment business, and so
it's the. Because I think it's the most difficult industry in the world. That's the entertainment business, or the film business. Yeah, but most rewarding probably as well. So
for the right people, right? If you're really into it for the right reasons, then there's nothing else for you to do. But the key is to be smart about it. To be like, look, I'm not going to get on a bus and go to Hollywood and be like, all right, I'm here. Like you want to to me, the idea is multiple income streams. Go slow. Know that there's some things that we can control, and there's a lot of things we can't. And so to be mindful about those variables. Like I think one of the things that I see in writers or producers is because we have to deal with uncertainty, right? And there's one way to deal with it, which is sort of false optimism. And then there's another way to deal with it, was false pessimism. Oh, it'll never work, or of course it's going to work. But the smarter approach for writers and producers is systematic in some way. So you can do it on your own and go, I'm going to try this, measure, see how it works, try again. So you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn. And then best of all, you just follow somebody else's system because they've already failed a million times and already learned. And so that's how I see it. But that's how to face the uncertainty of the business, because it's hard. We need to pay our bills, right? Even if you're a trust fund baby or whatever, you have money, you still need meaning. You still need to get up and do something for somebody. And so
true, yeah. I think what I see from the writer's side is they're always looking for feedback, and feedback is expensive. Expensive. It's time from producers. They ask the feedback, but of course we don't have time unless we're in business for a project, and we will give feedback on every draft. So I think that's a frustration, because when you pass on a project, then the first question that would arise is like, why? Why? And then, no answer. So I think that must be a very, very big frustration, which we're also solving with the AI coverage. And you're also very optimistic on the AI side. So I think that would be a really good tool to just make better writers. Don't you think?
100%. It's all, of course. It's so, look, we can just do a journal entry and have our own thoughts. But if we want to do this professionally, we're doing something so it lands on somebody else, and they want to take enough action and go, that looks good, here's my money. for strangers. So ideally, you have some sort of you can go right to your market live is the best way, but that's kind of tricky. You have to know about virality. You have to know about how to show up online. Something like what you're developing is really great because it's a nice approximation of what a producer or an audience might be thinking. And so, and by the way, not even just the full screenplay, just on the concept level. Is this concept any good in one sentence? The best person I've ever met in terms of concepts, and this guy sold a Shrek expansion franchise in one sentence. And he learned to get really good at concepts because he had a manager, and he would send his manager one concept every day for like a year. And every day he was like, how about this one? Like, no good. How about this one? No good. How about this one? And literally it was like 100, 200 in before they go, that's actually not half bad. But you see, that's that feedback. Like, and everybody obviously doesn't have a manager, but you could do that with AI if you built AI to respond as like a manager or as a producer or ideally as your ideal audience member. So AI is a really good surrogate at a very cost-effective way to give you some reps. You ultimately do want real humans to get in the mix at some point. And the best of all is obviously if you're working with a real producer and getting paid, because then you both have real stakes in the game, or like working with me as a coach, because then I have real stakes in the game for you to actually get better. And so the iterations come really fast. And but that's what you need. You need iterations because we don't know. We have to fail and learn.
Yeah, no, I agree. So basically, you compare top screenwriting with elite sports teams.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean I totally agree on that. I think it's commitment and never stop. You're in the trenches. It's war, man. You have to go through it. Never stop, otherwise you die. That's the mentality I have. So I always move forward. Yeah. So I guess also on the writer's side, that's like, I mean, if you write 5 hours a day, or 6 hours a day, I think, and you also evaluate your work. You have to evaluate. Otherwise, you just stay on the same level, which is not desirable. But so what are your thoughts on that?
On the amount of on which part?
On the, let's say, your thoughts on the focus and also on the mindset of a writer. What mindset should a writer have in order to become great?
Well, it's hyper competitive. To get into the Writers Guild, you actually have a better statistical chance of playing Major League Baseball. Like you're betting your chance of better than Major League Baseball. Then that's how elite it is, and it's because with the Writers Guild, you're competing against 3 generations of great storytellers. With baseball, you're really talking about 1 generation of the best baseball players. So it's hyper competitive. I think the competition is going to go down because there's just it's going to decentralize, just like YouTube. There's not one YouTube. It's just anybody can do YouTube from anywhere. That's how cinema is moving towards, which is great.
Right.
But even then, most people who have YouTube channels, they aren't very good, right? They're not actually creating something that makes an impact, that makes people even want to subscribe. Most of the 3 million novels that are written aren't really selling more than 100 books. So that is an amazing amount of time to put in when you're not, and again, the experience of it might be really enjoyable, so that's fine. But if you want to do it professionally, you need to iterate fast. And so, iterating on concept is about the fastest way possible to do it. But then working with somebody who's already got a system will speed everything up. That's, again, I learned that the hard way. And I already went to NYU and I went to all these things, but it wasn't until I found Blake Snyder's system who had me focus on the concept in one sentence. And that to me was when I really broke through at a professional level as a screenwriter. I was quasi at the professional level as a director, really at it, because I'd made 50 shorts even before going to NYU. So I already had my 10,000 hours early on, but I wasn't able to hold attention for 90 minutes like you do in a really well crafted screenplay. And that comes from that, like we said before, being able to get the emotion on the page and then knowing enough about structure so you can hold their attention through it. And that you're focused on, and a lot of times what happens with newer writers, they're overwhelmed. There's too many choices. They don't know what to focus on. Mm-hmm. So they're writing the script for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They're just lost. They don't know because they're facing uncertainty and they're trying to figure it out on their own. They're not doing it systematically, and they're not just following a proven system. And so they're going, and it's fine if they enjoy it, but they're doing it the hard way. You want to do anything the right way, you learn, especially something that's as hyper-competitive as sports or entertainment. You learn the best models from the best people, and you'll go, and it's still a challenge, but then you have a fighting chance because you're actually just focusing your energy on what actually is going to matter, not a lot of baloney.
Yeah, so can you tell me the difference between good to great in screenwriting? Because you can have a really good script, but what I miss sometimes in a good script is like, you know, I call it the emotional, the emotion inside the script. But what do you think technically is missing in
it's simply that. We already said it. It's emotion. They're not solving for emotion. They're solving for something else other than emotion. And so they're going, well, they're, you know, like the egregious example is exposition, right? So a line of dialogue is so expository because the writers got the world in their mind and they need to, no. All that stuff has some importance, but what matters more than anything else, like 95% of the game is emotion. And that comes from authenticity and openness and just the best idea. And like, I don't know why this works, but I'm feeling it, like that emotion. And then everything else is kind of craft to kind of just give people, like in a way, like a story is like a delivery device for emotion. You're just giving people a meditative emotional journey or a therapeutic emotional experience. And if you're not able to go level 9 or 10 in terms of emotional authenticity and openness and put that in your art, you don't have a chance. And so the good, either the hack professional or the talented amateur or whatever, and the elite, it's just consistency of delivering very specific emotion.
Yeah. So this writer, there are many writers, right? That is in their room writing and has never written a produced script.
Yeah.
Very frustrating if it takes 10 years, 15 years, 12 years, 5 years. I mean, it's frustrating. You need to be stay positive in order to survive. So what should they do? What should change in their mind, or maybe what should they do in order to keep the energy to pursue their dreams? Because you know it can come at someday, but we never know when, right? So what should they do?
They got to track their progress. They got to come up with a system, and because if you're going in circles and you don't know you're going in circles, that's why you take 5, 10 years or whatever. But if you have a system, even if you didn't want to take somebody else's system, which is crazy not to, because they've already got it solved. Even if you're like, no, I want to figure it out all on my own. Great, just track what the F you're doing. I went here, I got this response. I learned, okay? Then I went here, I got that response. I learned, got it. So if you track, you will make progress by trial and error. And then once you get that, then once you understand that concept, you might as well just borrow somebody else's tracking who's already been doing it forever and just be like, I'll start there. That's what I do with Blake. Like Blake, I learned from Blake when he was already a working writer, and he was like, here's how I did it. Here's how I solved for all those things. And I was like, man, I tried to do that on myself. I didn't have a system. I wasn't learning. It was taking forever. I was spending a lot of money. And then I learned his system. I was like, oh, zip, 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 zip. And then, you know, it's a way. Once you find the right system for you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be my system, but what you'll find actually, if you study like multiple systems, they're pretty much overlapping. They're basically saying a structure is beginning, middle, end. Almost all systems will say focus on your concept. So it's concept, it's structure, it's character, it's the basics that you already know. But you know, each system has its own style, and you need to find your own style of system that really works for you, and that's going to expedite things. And then on the other part, so that's the big one, is writing at the professional level. And then the other part is getting it in the right hands. So you're helping people with that. And that's significant. The other way to do it is just find a way to be authentic online, to get in conversations with people, post stuff that really means something to you. You know, or, you know, and people are like, oh, well, I live in Kentucky or whatever. It's like, you have internet access. If you have internet access, you can build relationships. Yeah. Or just create the content yourself. Like, you know, AI is getting better and better and better. I saw a Star Wars piece yesterday that if I didn't know it was AI, I wouldn't have realized. The fact that I was looking for it, I was like, oh, but like it's phenomenal and it's going to get better. But we're going to run into the same problem. You're going to have, right now you have 50,000 independent films being made a year. We're going to have 500,000 being made in probably 2 or 3 years. And most of them are not going to be any good. You need to be really good emotionally and authentic. Just like, again, most YouTube channels are not very good because they're not really delivering what the people want. And so you have to say, I think they want this, and then you test it and you see, and you meet the market where the market's at.
Yeah, I try to understand as a producer. I mean, it's also let's call it a side job on the podcasting, but I think I'm really intrigued what's happening and what people think and what the frustrations are. So I just try to interview the right people and just have a conversation about it, and then probably there will be something helpful in this case for writers and also producers, maybe. So I think that's just my contribution, or just our contribution at this moment. But I think it's interesting because, like you say, you never know where this talented writer is coming from, and just drops a script on your desktop, which is gonna be the next whatever, big movie, and it happened before many times. So yeah, I think for a writer, in order to separate himself, herself from the hobbyist, there needs to be structure, correct? There needs to be like an internal analysis of, okay, did I make progress today?
Yeah.
Is my writing better? If yes, why? If not, why? I think that's also not very evident to define if there's progress. I mean, if you work with someone else, with a mentor, yeah, they will tell you. But if there's no mentor,
yeah,
how do you find out you're making progress?
That's the problem. You do it through very slow trial and error, and that's what I did. And because again, if you're doing this, if you want to do it professionally, you need to take your story to strangers and get them to pay you money. That's a really, really high bar because strangers, us included, have so many options. We're not going to spend it, even if it was free, we're not going to watch something unless it's really good. And so the craft of getting so good about getting somebody's attention and holding their attention, especially for 90 minutes, that takes a lot of trial and error. And if you're not doing it systematically, it just takes forever, and people get really, really frustrated. So like the people that come to my program are often, there's really 3 different categories. Some of them, know enough to know, like, I just don't know how to do this. Like I had this one client, Todd, he was a deacon of the church. So he would tell stories to his congregation, but he really wanted to write screenplays. And so I showed him how to do it. And then in 5 months, he had a script done, and he sent it out for notes, and nobody that I knew, just independently. And they came back and they're like, "This is pretty good." They said, "What have you been doing this for, like 5 years? Is this like the 5th or 6th script that you've written?" He goes, "No. 5 months, first script." And that was the difference. He followed the system. And so,
right.
Yeah. And so he went but the beginning stages, he just overwhelmed. He knew enough to know that he didn't know. And then I have other clients that are like adjacent. Like I have one client named Sonia, who's as a documentarian, she won an award at Sundance this year. And but she came to me years ago because she wanted to really develop her voice as a screenwriter. So she was an adjacent professional, and so they're not really beginners. They're beginners in some ways, but they're really intermediates. And then some people are just professionals that are basically already have the chops, but they don't have the system. Like this one client, Steve, who got nominated for an Oscar this year. But before that, he came to me, and he had some success with a co-writer, but he didn't really have his own voice. And so I worked with him and I worked with him on the promotion side. So it makes a difference. If you need if you don't have any sort of conscious system, man, you're in real trouble. So the key is to find a system that's right for you.
Yeah, and also don't let the air out of the balloon. That's what I heard on some podcast. every scene, if the air goes out of the balloon, it's like, why is this scene here?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right. The
that's
emotion,
just
the
what
emotion just
bothers
went
me
down.
as a producer.
Yeah, the tension went down, the emotion went down. So yeah, so what do we change in that scene to keep the tension up, and that gets it to the next scene?
Yeah, I mean, when I watch Back to the Future, is there any scene, any shot that's not necessary? It's not, huh? It's like bang, 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 never stops.
Well, that brings up another great point. Is we've been talking about system in general in terms of writing any sort of screenplay, but what's also really helpful is a model that's like the one that you're doing. So you can go apples to apples. Let's say you were doing a family, sci-fi, Back to the Future type thing. You could study that exact structure and go, well, what did they do in the beginning? Oh, well, here's how they introduced the characters. How many characters did they introduce? Why did they do that? But you can study what already worked, apples to apples, and that can expedite things significantly. If you're just going, no, I want this to be totally original, like, good luck. You're going to be lost in the effing woods forever. Like, just go to town on what's already working, and not like what I think is the best, but what you think. You as a writer, like, I love this movie and I want to do the same but different. Study what that concept is, how that's expressed, what the structure is, and then just literally use that as a model. And if you bring enough of your voice to it, people won't even know. Like, I wrote this script and I used Dead Poet Society as the structural model, and I thought I was a little concerned because I was like, is this a little derivative? Did I borrow too much? And I would tell people when they were reading it, I was like, let me know how you thought, what you thought about Dead Poet Society. You like it? And they read my script. They're like, Brooks, your script's got nothing to do with Dead Poet Society. Why are you even talking about that? But for me, I knew structurally it was exactly Dead Poet Society. So that's the thing, is you go to town on what already works, whether it's a whole system or a particular comparable, and then you do the right amount of the same but different, and then you're not reinventing the wheel. You're putting your paint job on your favorite type of car, and that's what is much more expeditious in terms of making stuff that impacts people.
Yeah, but you need a lot of time, I think, as a writer. You cannot just learn it in 6 months like maybe this person did, but you need some mileage. I call it mileage, right?
Not really.
So
I mean, again, here's the thing. If you're coachable, right? If you're ready to say, hey, I don't know how to write screenplays. I have other skills, like so there's another person, Heather, who came to me and had less. I mean, she'd written some stuff, but she was like a creativity coach in like a corporate session. Never written a screenplay. Mm-hmm. Same thing with her. 5 months. And actually it was the same week that Todd got his notes back. She got notes back and got the same comment. Seems like you've been at this, like 5 years, 5 years? No. First screenplay. Because I tell them what to focus on and what not to focus on, and that expedites everything. They had the creativity in them, but most people have the creativity and they go, I'll try to figure it out myself, which is what I did myself for 12 years. And I made, and if you look at the quality of the screenplay that I wrote in 94 and the quality of the one that I wrote in 2003 or 4, it wasn't that different. But you look at but before and after Blake Snyder, night and day difference. Because I was all going on talent before. If you go on talent, good luck. If you go on talent and a system, now you actually have a fighting chance at the professional ranks.
Yeah. No. That's what everyone needs, basically, in any business. So we have Aline Montague. She's a screenwriter. Writers often focus on story while producers focus on market and money. How do both sides get aligned without hurting the creative vision? That's a question. Maybe a question for me or for you. We can both answer it. So maybe you go first.
Yeah, great.
I can pick in.
Well, again, in phase 1, you're just experimenting. I wouldn't even think about the audience. Phase 2, when you become a real craftsperson, fall in love with it, then you want to get that feedback. You want to start feeling it. And then once you're really good at that voice and you can do it consistently, and then you absolutely, want to have the market in the room with you, and you can just iterate. So I think that the truth is, when you're really, if you're doing it professionally and you're fully realizing your vision, the audience is going to love it too. You don't want to say, I'm an artiste and I don't care if you like it or not, like Coppola did on his last film, right? Like, okay, he was like, and Rick Rubin, actually, I love him, but he kind of, I think, goes a little in that direction too. He's like, don't think about the audience at all. And I think At a certain point, yes, you don't. But at a certain point, of course you do, because they're real partners. And so I see them as a partner. I see that my work is better, but it's got to be the right time. If I think about the audience at the right time, at the wrong time, it F's everything up. And so you want to know when to get the notes, when to take it to market, and when you still need just your to be in your writing cave, sorting things out for yourself. It's a really important thing. And if you mess that up, that's another way that people lose time in.
Yeah, I think we start talking about audience if there's like a distribution negotiation or a sales agent negotiation, then it's very. And what I found is don't mix any genres. It's really tough. If you mix genres, then it's really hard to sell.
You know
so
why? Let me tell you why that happens. Because genre is a promise of emotion. And so
yes,
even with probably, like so if you have horror comedy, often really hard to get right because comedy is particular and horror has to be really scary. So if you're trying horror comedy, it's a really high bar and really difficult. But most times writers don't get it. And they're like, I wrote this thing and it's an adventure, it's a love story, and it's a sci-fi. You're like, no. One emotion, one core emotion. And for horror comedy, if it's mostly comedy with some horror, it works better. If it's mostly horror with a little comedy, it works better. If it's 50-50, that's a problem.
How do you explain the success of Alien?
The original Alien?
Which is a horror movie basically in space, in my opinion. It's not a science fiction film, right?
Yeah, I would call it, the construction is horror because you're basically talking about a monster in a confined space. And Blake Snyder talks about sin bringing out the monster. And so that was a corporation that kind of put them in a compromising situation that kind of brought out the monster. So that's a significant element with, but I would say it's just a scary as F monster. Like in most simple terms, like that monster in that confined space was a really scary combination. And that chest burster thing, like that was such a creative, scary ass way. So horror is just what scares the pants off you. And then creating some sort of force of antagonism that comes from that deep, dark, scary place in you that you have enough distance of that you can articulate and be specific. We talked about personally, No Country for Old Men. In a way, that's a horror movie too, because Shigur is like a personification of fate, or almost like a zombie. He's living in the real world, but he's a little bit off, and he just comes. And so when you get a character or a personification of that antagonism force so specifically clarified and personified, whether it's a monster or like a person monster, that's a major element for certain types of movies.
Yeah, great. Matthew Job, author, screenwriter. Where do producers actually look for new material? Are contests, the blacklist, or paid pitch platforms worth the money? And then it's the second part of his question, and does owning original IP make my project more attractive? So on the latter, I think yes, and less complicated for a producer in order to package, because when there is like underlying rights from a book or a novel, then we have to secure those rights as well, and that can sometimes can be really complicated and take a lot of time, because some novelists don't have any connection with the Hollywood business, and when we come down with all those big contracts, then they have to, they need a lot of time to go through it and to have their lawyer looking at it. So having your own IP, I think, is always great. Then the first part, so where producers actually look for new material. What's your experience? I mean, I'm a producer, so maybe I answer that first. We made our own platform, screenrep.com, so that's my way of getting the frustration from the producer side away, because basically what I'm doing is we are creating with a team here the platform, and I just want that to help me as much as possible. And I know many other producers will also have their problem solved, because I'm just doing it for myself right now. And I have also other producers already using it, but there are going to be so many features. So the way it will work in the near future, let's say, is that you have your script, and there's going to be some technicality between the writer and the producer, and the match is going to be made very, very quickly. So it's going to take away a lot of frustration. But at this moment, I mean, the big platforms, I mean, they all have their good things, of course, but I believe in the new model, which takes away a lot of the pain from the writers, but also the producers. But because we don't have time, we don't have patience. We're always busy, and the writers, they're working like years on project, and then nobody responds. So that's a big problem, right? That's a big problem. So maybe you want to add something to that.
Yeah. So I'll share what I do, and then I have one follow-up question for you. My personal preference is, as a writer, is relationships. I like to make relationships. I like to see if I even because I started out making movies with my friends. And so that's the bar.
Right.
If I don't like you, I don't want to make movies with you. And so that's still the bar for me. So I just socialize me personally. When I coach other writers, it's whatever works. There's 3 basic ways that they can, like Stage 32 has like, you can pay for pitches, right? That's like, there's ways like that. There's cold queries, which is like, you just, they're brute force. And then there's the social approach, which is my preference. What you're doing is, which I think is really great. It's that sort of online connection marketplace approach, which is great. So my question for you is, had you used some of those as a producer trying to find material and were kind of frustrated because you couldn't find exactly what you wanted, or did you never really use them because they didn't appeal to you? Where have you found your scripts?
Yeah, I mean, previously with emails, so people email, and then we also develop a lot internally. So we have those pitches, like those log lines coming in every day, like, hey, this is good, this sticks, okay, highlight, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. I also have working with directors that are like, let's say, half writers, but they also hook up with writers, and they have a great relationship. They come to the team, and then we work, together in order to get it to the level I can sell it. Mm-hmm. That's also something that happens a lot. I think relationships is great, but I think also for producers it's very important to get like fresh, let's call it fresh meat as much as you can, because if you work with one director, you're working like 1 year at least, or 2 years for one project. Okay, if you have another situation, you can just combine and make more movies. That's a thing. But also, you never know where the ideas are coming from. And Spielberg is the greatest director ever, let's say. He's not a writer, really, right? So you don't have to be a great writer as a director, and vice versa. So I think it's always good to have new people passing by with some great ideas, but maybe they don't know how to get the script at the right level yet. But if they're promising, there's something we can do. I prefer to work with something that is really willing to go for it and never stops than a genius which is an a-hole, right? I don't work with those, and I know a lot of geniuses, but but I think it's more. Everyone started somewhere, when you're really young and you make mistakes. It's fine, man. I have children too, they also make mistakes. I still love them, right? So I think it's that's my approach. It comes from everywhere at this moment, but with our system, we also try to incorporate the AI coverage, which gives really in-depth information about like, okay, here is the jump scare. That's the other one. This is the emotional, thing, at page 9, whatever, all those things. You just see it on a map, and you can say, and while you talk with the writer, you can go over it and you can say, hey, by the way, this moment, this works, but I think there's some improvement possible. Think about just this moment, and then, by the way, it's page 37, like that. You don't have to look into the screen. You just click on it and you see it. I think that's really helpful. And it's a long list of stuff, but eventually you have to decide yourself if you want to do the change, But it's the AI that indicates the possibilities, and then you have to use your connection with the universe in order to
That's
say
right.
like, yes, but I'm not gonna do it because there's this other moment that's connected to it. Whatever, that's your choice as a creative.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, that's my answer to that. Anything to add from your side?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the thing is that, yeah, you have to find, like, if you're going to do it professionally, you have to find your own way to outreach. What can you do consistently? Like the bar that I recommend for writers is 20 reads. If you're not getting 20 reads on your script, like quality reads, somebody like you, somebody who can actually produce the movie and move it forward, or is 1 degree away, like it could be somebody who's an assistant to you could read it, that would be a quality read. Because if they love it, they're going to pass it to you, right? So 20 quality reads. If you're not getting 20 quality reads, you're not really taking this seriously as a professional. You're just not. And I get that number 20
Yeah.
because, if you're repped by one of the big agencies or whatever, and they really like it, they go out to, whatever, 10, 15, 20, 30 places. So whatever your approach is to get your 20 reads, great. And I say 20 because if you get 20 reads, goes out around town, and nobody's getting attached, then there's something off. The timing is off. It's either the quality of the work isn't quite there, or the timing is off. Something's off. 20 is a pretty good data set. And by the way, I spoke at a screenwriting conference a couple of weeks ago, 150 writers in the room. I go, raise your hand if you've gotten, three or, up to 3 or 4 or 5 quality reads, and like 4 or 5 people raise their hands. I said, raise your hand if you've gotten 20 quality reads. Nobody did. It's
Yeah.
because writers just see themselves as writers. They don't see themselves as business people who write. And so they're not taking their product to market. They're not even giving themselves a shot at the plate. I know writers personally who definitely have material that could be set up, but they enter a contest or they do whatever. They're not actually taking it to market. And so that's fine. Like I don't want them to be harsh on themselves when they hear this, but I want you to say, look, if you're serious about doing it professionally, come up with a professional outreach system that feels good for you, that's repeatable, that's getting you 20 reads. So then if you get 20 and nobody buys it, that's still a win, because it's like, all right, hey, I took my best shot. I took it out there. The data wasn't there. And that's a really good thing to learn from. But if you do that once or twice, and by the way, once you get your 20 reads, then all those are now existing relationships. It gets it easier to go out to your circles. And by the way, if you go to an agent, all they do is go to their existing circles. So as you do this more and more, especially systematically, there's certain things that pick up. But you have to have the right standards. Like almost no writers I even know think about, oh, I'm done with it, I'm getting 20 reads. Most people are like, I'm done with it, I might submit to a contest. I don't know. And that's okay. Again, I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying, if you want any fighting chance at doing this professionally, find a system, find actually the real goalpost to aim at, and then iterate until you're hitting those goalposts. That's the straight way through the woods.
Yeah, yeah. We have Medina. Yeah, we have Medina Abramov, screenwriter. I mean, they're all like similar. The questions: how can a writer protect their vision while also adapting to budget and production limits? So I think when writing the script in the first place, make it as great as possible and don't think about anything, just about the emotion. I think we covered that already.
Yeah.
So that's something that comes back. I think a producer's focus is not to create a script of a certain budget. The producer's first focus is to create a great movie, whatever that script is,
Yeah.
and especially with the AI and all the VFX, that's gonna be more cheaper to make.
Yeah.
You can do a lot, I would just not think about like, yeah, maybe this scene's gonna be too expensive. Don't worry about that. I would just go for it. So Alice Johnson, screenwriter and author. When I write, I try to think creatively, but when I edit, I think about budget and production. So that's the thing again. Is that the right approach, or am I taking too much of the producer's job? I think at some point you have to do it when you talk to the producer. But I think again, and that's like the same thing with Medina. I think you have to go for it. Creativity, let it flow. Let it flow and make sure every scene has this emotion, correct?
Yeah. I mean, if you blow them away emotionally, but you have a crowd scene, they'll figure out a way to not do the crowd scene and save some money if they need to. If you don't blow
Yeah.
them away emotionally, it doesn't matter if you have one location, one actor, and it can be made for $100, right? It's all about the emotion. And so, a lot of these questions are not even aiming at the right goalpost that's going to move them forward right now.
Yeah, I think though maybe I think though if you would write a TV movie for some networks, you really have to know what the restraints are. But then you already have like a sandbox. This is what you use, and you just write for that, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to add action scenes, crazy action scenes in a Hallmark movie, right? That's not really what it's about over there.
Yeah.
So in that case, yeah, you just do it the right way or what the market demands.
Yeah.
But I think if you're just writing something original, go for it. I would really go for it. So Aline, the screenwriter, Aline W. What is the best next step for a new writer after writing a script, reading scripts, and networking? I think we covered that as well. Or maybe something to add to that.
Yeah, to me, it's those three phases. You're dabbling and seeing if it's even for you, and then once you're like definitely serious, then perfect that craft. Find a system that works for you. Find somebody to learn from. It'll go even faster. And then once you get your voice and you can do it consistently, then you come up with your outreach system. How do I get it into the right hands? And how do I do it in a way that's enjoyable? And so yeah, that's the sequence that I see.
Yeah. Okay. And then here's a good one. Writer director Robert Flowers. How should writers deal with being asked for unpaid rewrites, especially when producers say just one more pass? And how can writers know when a producer is truly serious and aligned with them? I think that's a good one. So my answer would be understand. I think the producer should give really precise notes and not just like I don't like it or maybe this whatever. I think the notes are really should be really in some direction and not just change all the time. If that's the case, you're building something together, and then if it takes another pass, then you have to do it. But I understand writers also need to make a living, so I think if you're an underproduced writer, you will have to do it no matter how, I guess. But it's you need to know who you're working with and what the commitment is. If this is a producer that just wants to make a movie, then you're wasting your time. So be really cautious with that, and also understand what you have in your hands and what you have created as a writer so far. And then if the producer you're dealing with also understands the value of that, you can maybe work another year with him. Meanwhile, you do some other projects as well, but that's a choice you have to make. You have to take a good assessment, I guess. What do you think, Brooks?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's difficult, right? Because, producers, you guys aren't making any money till the damn thing gets made, and you can't get it made until the script is right. So,
Right.
It's a really difficult position for you guys. It's also difficult for writers because in theory, they could rewrite indefinitely. And then that doesn't work. So, it's a great question. It's a really significant challenge for both roles. I come back to relationship. Like if if you're working with the right people and you like their vision and they like your vision, then at the very base level, you just want to come up with some sort of agreement where you're both like, okay, this is a reasonable amount of rewrites. This is a reasonable amount of of notes and you just kind of work it out. Like you want to make the agreement feel human, and so that you guys as collaborators, you're both going to be, happy as you can be with it, because there's going to be push and pull, but it needs to be simple. That's one part. I'm in the Writers Guild, so there's actually pretty specific, terms. It's like, look, if you're going to do this or that, it's going to cost this much, and and then that's the basics, and then when you actually apply them, there's a little bit of interpretation of how those guidelines are, but it's a problem for writers to not. It's a problem for producers to push writers outside if they're in the Writers Guild, outside of that, because it's a reputation business. So ideally you're working with people that you like and you're just kind of going back and forth and you make the damn thing. But in that process, if they're in the Writers Guild, they can't weaken the guild, because that fucks up all writers, not just that one. right? And so you don't want to be the type of producer that kind of pushes them to sort of, to mess up on their union. And obviously, if producers do it egregiously, they can get, banned. You can't work with those sort of writers.
Yeah.
But you just want to really, coming back to it, it's like whether you're in the guild now or you're not, you just want to have, sometimes bring up the stuff that's difficult. Hey, here's where we're at. I need more of this, or I need less of that, or I can do it, or I have the time, or I don't. You just want to be honest with the people that you're working with. And then accept that sometimes you need to move, hey, it worked for a while and it doesn't anymore. And that's, we're all big boys and big girls. And sometimes we're going to be in the sandbox and it's going to be amazing. Sometimes we get in there and we need to step out, and that's okay. Like there's another project you can do next time with a person or whatever. So I see it long-term. I see it relationship-based. And I try to make the agreements as simple and as clear. And like, let's do something we're both really happy with. And when you really focus there, and then getting the emotion, like that's like 90% of the game. If you're getting into legal battles and blah, 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 you've missed so many opportunities before that. And so, or if you're working with a producer or working with a screenwriter and you just don't like the way that they're communicating and going back and forth, then they're not the right match. Go work with somebody else.
Yeah. No, what I see as a producer, because the writer is in this position, like, okay, shall I do another draft? But we also working with a lot of writers, and what also happened to producers and to myself is, like, we spent so much time, we read like 15, 20, 25 revisions, and then it doesn't go anywhere. So we wasted a lot of time on something that's never going to happen. The worst thing would be that the writer goes to another producer and just make the movie, but that didn't happen to me yet. But that's a possibility. So it's always an investment also from the producer to spend time, and the time could be lost. That's why I think that the producer spending time should also be very very precise on the notes and spend really real time on the project, and not just like whatever, vague notes. You cannot build something with that. I think you have to be really precise. So, yeah, I think that we had a great chat so far. It's really interesting to see, and I hope we can bring the writers and the producers together. I mean, I do it my way, you do it your way with your coaching, which is really helpful. So you're located in LA.
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles.
So the coaching, that's online. Does it work? Or how does it work? Where can people find you?
Yeah, it's online. People can find me, and I have a free replay people can get of my 9-step system. So you can just walk you through all those steps, so you can get a sense of what do I mean by that structure and that system. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm at Brooks Elms on LinkedIn, and DM me like 9 steps. And I'll just send them the free replay, and they can get a sense of if my system is right for them. And even if my system isn't right, then I would still encourage them to get another system that is. Like, any system is better than no system, unless you're having to weirdly good at creating your own systems, which most people aren't. So just take any system, right. Blake's, mine, anyone, start to get a feel for it. And then if it really works for you, go to town, like master it. That's the fastest way through the woods. And so if anybody liked what they've heard from me, they're welcome to just reach out, LinkedIn.
Right. So one closer, where's the future going for screenwriting?
I think it's going to be the best.
Or filmmaking.
It's going to be the best ever, because there's going to be more and more access directly to audience. There's going to be ways that you can go directly to your people. And what's going to happen is you're just going to have communities built up. It's going to be it's much more like the YouTube model. But for people who are doing serious movies, and then as long as you're working with people that you really like, I think there's going to be more money flowing through, because then there's going to be less risk if you can build your audience in advance, because they're fans of the small stuff you did, and then you have a big old audience, and then how much money, how much demand is there. So you can get base level demand and then make the project. So that's the future. I think it's really promising.
Yeah. The writers control the IP.
Yeah, and
that's
then
good.
They definitely control their IP, but they need collaborators. They need producers. They need people who can make sure they can develop it, and then make sure that it gets produced in a way that looks really good, and then brought to the same people. So even though you can, I mean, anybody can right now make a movie on their film, make a movie on their phone and upload it. I mean, nobody's going to see it, but like, how do you get people to see it? You need teammates to help you first make it a good idea, realize it, produce it, market it. And so when you find those teammates, you want to find people who you really like, who you're sort of like-minded.
Yeah. So you think like writers going to become directors as well, more and more, since the technology is going to be there?
It's a great question. The pro Not as much as I thought. Like I've been like a huge component from, and because most of when I started my coaching practice, it was mostly for screenwriters. But like I said, I started off as a writer director. I went to NYU Film School, so I identified it as a writer director already. So it was easy for me to be like, oh my God, look at these AI tools. I'll dive right in. Most of the writers who I'm trying to go, hey, come on, it's awesome. They're like, I can't. I'm a writer. I'm not a director. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a writing lane, people who are really mostly focused on writing. You're going to have directing, which could be AI shot making or just old school filmmaking directing, right? You're going to have producers that kind of oversee it and kind of put people together if it's a bigger project. And you're going to have really marketing is going to be the thing. So those are the how do you basically get this project and then build a community around it? So those are the kind of, I think, key roles that are going to be around for another 5, 10, 50 years. But there's a lot of more specific roles, especially on the bigger Hollywood movies, that are just going away because it's just more efficient. And at the end of the day, what matters? It's the idea of the person or the team, and then the ideal audience member. What are they willing to pay for? And if they're willing to pay for it, then you have business. If they're not willing to pay for it, you don't. And so you don't want to have 200 people involved in that project when you could actually do that with a small handful of, it's almost like a rock band. 3 or 4 people, can create really amazing movies very shortly. So it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I think creativity will never die, even with the AI. It's more another. It's more tools. It's another tool,
Yeah.
and I think creatives will be very fortunate the next years. And yeah, I'm also really positive about that. And the future is bright, let's say, right?
Sure is. Yeah.
And that's a cut.
Great. Yeah. Good job, man.